The history of foreign intervention in South Asia, let's call it India for more specificity, is long and complicated. And it includes South Asian empires that conquered other South Asian empires. There's no easy way to condense this history, so unlike China, that sought and managed mostly to maintain a certain amount of isolation, India was engaged both voluntarily and forcefully in the world. This goes back, at least in recorded time, to the Indus River Valley civilization that began more than 4,000 years ago, as I mentioned in a previous video. It was centered along the Indus River Valley in modern Pakistan, and in fact, India is named after the Indus, and the very word Indus means river in Sanskrit. Then, beginning about 4,000 years ago or so, the invasions began in earnest. This started with the Aryan or Indo-Aryan invaders from Central Asia. They brought both Hinduism and the Indo-European languages to the area. Then Persian invaders followed them. Alexander the Great made it to India with his Greek or Greek-ish military. You know, back then, as you invaded, you took people on to your military, even if they were not from your original area. And there were great Indian empires, including the Nanda, the Guptas, Maratha, and the Sikhs, amongst others. The Mughals followed much of those, and the Europeans, especially the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, and the British, were the last of the outside forces to influence India. Okay, that's a lot. My concern is more that you understand the general complexity of this history more than all of the specifics, since this is not a history class. I'm going to focus, though, on the last of these groups, the Europeans, and their influence, particularly the British influence in South Asia. The collapse of the colonial system, meaning the European colonial system, is really about this. The modern Europeans began arriving about 500 years ago. Over the last 200 years, leading up to 1947, the British were the primary movers and shakers in Southern Asia. When we compare the way the British ran their empire to the way most of the other Europeans ran theirs, the Dutch probably being the one exception here, they were in it for one thing: money. They weren't about spreading their religion, nor were they about creating little versions of themselves. They were about commerce. To that end, they had a focus on cash crops, which is a version of plantation farming, especially tea, coffee, spices, cotton, rubber, and the gemstones that India is also famous for: rubies, emeralds, diamonds, so on. And to that end, they built, or had built by local labor, railways to move these products out. Today, Indian National Railways is still the largest employer in India. Ports to ship all of this stuff around the world, and to accomplish these things, they created a pyramidal hierarchy. It worked more or less like this. At the top was the British management, but below that, they used all indigenous labor. So, all of the middle and lower management, and of course, all of the actual workforce, was local, not British. If the British saw potential in a person in the areas they conquered, they educated that person and trained that person. They were unconcerned with who the person was. And of course, to make commerce smooth, they taught them English. In the beginning of the 20th century, there began to be agitation for independence from the British, and for that matter, throughout the world against European empires. Because of the two world wars and the related bloodlettings in Europe, Europeans lost the will to send young men to fight for far-off, far-flung empires. A British-educated South Asian Hindu attorney named Mohandas Gandhi became the leader of the movement towards independence. There's Gandhi on the left. In 1947, 2 years after the end of World War II, the British left India and partitioned South Asia into several independent countries. If you look where it says before partition, you can see what was British India. All of that area was controlled by the British, or almost all of it. You'll see a little bit more about this when we talk about Kashmir. And then after the partition, it broke up in the way you see here, mostly also. Notice though, it says West Pakistan and East Pakistan. So the 1947 partition created countries in this way. India and Nepal became primarily Hindu countries. Pakistan, which is today's modern Pakistan, and East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh. This was one single country at one point, West Pakistan, East Pakistan, but it was one country because it was primarily Muslim. And then in the early 1970s, Bangladesh broke off through a civil war and became an independent country. And this is the reason we have Pakistan and Bangladesh today. But originally they were one country, and they were put together as one country because they were Muslim, or overwhelmingly Muslim. Bhutan and Sri Lanka became primarily Buddhist countries. Afghanistan, which actually became independent in 1919 and then took a couple more decades before it was fully independent, was a primarily Muslim country. So again, these are the countries resulting from the breakup of quote-unquote India, as in British India. India, Pakistan, East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh, as you can see on this map, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and again, Afghanistan. This was a religious breakup.